Welcome to the Cyborg Interactive Podcast, where we help give a voice to creators. The people building games, making art, music, literature, pushing technology forward. I'm your host, Adrian Maggio, founder of Cyborg Interactive. Thanks for watching, or listening, depending on where you found us. We're available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you find podcasts. In this episode, I'll be chatting with digital artist Nick LeJeune, who is also program coordinator and associate professor for the Interactive Media and Game Design program at SUNY Polytechnic Institute in Utica, New York. Nick's art is a real-time interactive fusion of audio and visual elements brought together through hardware and algorithms. We're going to talk about digital art, video games, among other things. Let's get into it. You're a professor at SUNY Poly.
Yep.
In, what's the program called again?
It's Interactive Media and Game Design.
IMGD, that's right. I
Yep.
can never remember what it stands for.
Okay.
I've been in conversations with people and I'm like, it's IMGD. And they're like, what's it stand for? I'm like,
Interactive
Image.
Media is.
game, like...
No, it's good. It's a two-pronged degree in the sense that one is interactive media and one's game design, but we fuse those two together.
That's cool.
Yeah, I can talk more about that. Realistically, inside that program, we have 3 tracks. We have asset production, which involves 3D modeling, 2D pixel art, and sound. Okay. We have programming, which deals with logic, game mechanics, dynamics, so on and so forth. We also have marketing, where students take classes with the College of Business, learn how to brand a product, sell a product, and do public releases and that kind of thing.
I didn't know that it had a marketing aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. Some distribution for students is probably about 40 art, 40 programming, and 20 marketing. But I've been building relationships with the College of Business to increase that course load.
That's cool. Yeah, I was going to ask about business too. Starting a business, just how a game development business might work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they get a little bit of introduction to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I should have done at least like a minor in business when I was in school.
A lot of my students do.
That would have helped. I've had to kind of learn it the hard way.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the minors because how the minors play into it. We have a minor, and the programming students, straight up CS degree, take our minor so that they have that game experience. And then a lot of times, students in my marketing track will take a business minor.
Oh, that's cool. And you're also an artist, right?
That's right.
Kind of like an interactive. Well, tell me about your art.
Okay, so my art nowadays it revolves around creating large-scale, site-specific, immersive, and interactive installations. So when I started thinking about pursuing a degree in art, I've been an artist my whole life, I know that now, but I went into the Army and I did telecom. So I was able to work on microwave systems in training, but as soon as I got on the job, I was able to work on Cisco routers and all kinds of these things, connecting channels. My background as a kid, I built my first computer around the ages of 10 and 11.
Oh, wow.
My dad was the VP of IT at several businesses around Washington, D.C., and he would bring me home parts. I'd ask him for a computer, and he would bring me parts in a book. And he's like, if you want to play your video games, you got to do that. So it was good because I learned a lot about those old systems, vocabulary, and it's basically with BIOS configuration all the way down to hard drive defragmentation and all these different things. So as a kid, I grew up on the command line. I grew up in DOS. And so I was able to visualize. I would make these ideas and visualizations in my head on what's happening on the hard drive. And sometimes at school, my friends were like, what are you drawing? I'm like, I'm writing how data is allocated. So it's defrag. My friends are like, you're strange. But regardless, it was good for Dad to do that. I learned I learned about C. They were teaching Pascal in school. And so basically, I got to the end of my high school. I was focused on other things as a typical teenage boy would be. And I didn't want to program. I thought database analysis and all that kind of stuff, it wasn't for me. I wasn't into the math. But I got into West Virginia University for a double major in computer and electrical engineering. And so with that kind of boost, I went to school. My heart wasn't in it. I was an 18-year-old man at that stage, and it didn't work out. I failed out after a year. I just wasn't prepared for it. So again, back to joining the Army. About a year later, that's what I decided to do. I joined the Army for telecom. And at the end of that 5 years, I pretty much decided that I wanted to go to school for art. And so I got out, and I went to McNeese State University for a BA in art. And that primarily dealt with more traditional medias. It dealt primarily with drawing and advertising design. So I got those two concentrations. It's not necessarily the degree itself. The degree was a BA in art. But I focused on those two kinds of mediums. At the conclusion of that degree, I wanted to go to grad school. Not only that, I wanted to go to the grad school that I had not succeeded at before. So I applied to a few places, but I definitely applied to West Virginia University, and I was accepted into their MFA program for intermedia. Now, with that, I moved away from traditional forms of art, and I moved more into fusing my childhood knowledge, my telecom knowledge, into something that's more related to modern contemporary art. And so I developed a system that was more sculptural in form. So I was developing these large-scale installations that dealt with obsolete material. So you and I know these as floppy disks, cassette tapes, all these different types of media. And I had an affinity for recursive programming.
Oh, nice.
And so I just loved the idea of a function calling upon itself. So I made these forms that I took all these disks and tapes, and I also worked as an archiver for the library and the art historian. So I was scanning slides after slides after slides. I was dumping these floppy disks to a computer. I was dumping all this videotape to these digital entities. And then I would bind all these entities together with cable ties physically, the physical properties, the physical casing. And then I would project, either by sound or by actual projection, this media back onto itself. That was my thesis show. So basically, we're talking about using obsolete material to create something new, in the same turn destroying it. So it was a very cyclic type of show. So I graduated with that in 2011. In 2010, during my time there, I started an adjunct position at Fairmont State University. They had consulted me in 2009. I helped start a new studio art degree called Cross Media. And in that, I was able to develop my courses in electronic media, not necessarily game focused, but anything you can think of, digital sound, digital audio, tasking the students to take, one of the projects that we had was taking their favorite movie, and they would we would get the video of it, and they would have to rewrite it in 10 minutes. That was
Rewrite the whole movie?
Rewrite the whole movie in 10 minutes as best as they could.
Wow.
So they would take clips from this and this and this and change audio and put their own music in and their own clips. So if you get the kind of a Robot Chicken feel to it.
And it's their favorite movie, so they're familiar with it.
And they they were like, to edit it, so to fix it. And one of the students tried to do Memento. I was like, don't take that on. Like, it's okay. It's kind of hectic, but you'll still have to, like, the idea of correcting Christopher Nolan is kind of heresy. But regardless, it was good. And the audio project had them creating a 5-minute soundscape, a movie that was all sound.
Okay.
And they had to do it in surround sound on DVDs. And so I'm digressing now away from the art. But the fusing of these two things, I started to really become attracted to this idea of destroying something that you know and love, and then making something new from that destruction. So the idea behind this is I learned by accident, if you take an image and open it up in a sound interpreter, things happen. The data gets all, you can probably hear this from a programmer's point of view. It's going to make things all kind of glitchy and so on and so forth. And a lot of times in those early days, I noticed I was just getting static. But every once in a while, if I lowered the sampling rate, if I kind of toyed around with the endianness and the encoding, I would be getting these very colorful, very pixelated 16-color images similar to DOS from back in the day. Wow. And so, over countless tries, and I went at it, my professors in grad school were like, "You're going about this pretty scientifically." I'm like, well, I would run this script and run this script and run this script and see what I could get, what dimensions gave me what results, and I found the most robust and most colorful. And so that progressed to making animations. I was able to take in video, convert them through my process, and have these colorful animations. And a lot of to the fresh eye, they seem like they're just glitchy old photos. But what I was able to do is add interactivity into it, and then develop a system, a Linux-based system, command line only, that took in viewer input from a webcam, and then converted through the process, and then they could see themselves through my process. So in that regard, what I was able to do, viewers would come in, give me their input, and then I threw it through a projector and they could project it up on the wall. Underneath all of this ethos in the 2000 teens, when I was showing in galleries, I would locally source old computers from any gallery that I went to. So I'd have the gallery seek out stuff.
Yeah.
For me to kind of edit. And that went on for a while. I did a couple shows at Fairmont State and around. Ended up doing one at Shepherd University, there in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. I didn't think at that point that it was going to go too much further. I was going to stay in my teaching position. I'd continue to develop the program. But then I got a show at downtown New York City in Times Square. And I know this is gonna hurt, but it was a now defunct bar, and the name escapes me. But that was the first instance where my work was seen on a grand scale. At that point, I started applying to other places and seeing what I could get. Long story short, the money kind of dried up in West Virginia. We got a new president at Fairmont State, and I knew that while my job was good, I taught 4 classes a semester, and I was the assistant to the dean of the School of Fine Arts, but I also did all the School of Fine Arts publications. All the graphics, tickets, programs, posters, billboards. I did all the marketing, or I worked with the marketing team, let me put it that way. I did all the graphics for them. And so I knew that the new president was coming in with a complete graphics team. And so I applied up here to SUNY Poly, and that was when I was able to get the job. I mean, it was kind of like a very, very miraculous year. I got the interview at SUNY Poly, the Zoom interview, and then I did the in-person interview, and then I got the offer, and I was able to take my family, my wife, who is also an MFA in painting, and she's from Roseboom. I mean, that's plain and simple. She's from way out in the sticks over here. And it was good because I was able to get a job up here close to her family, and that was good. Now, when I started this job, I really wanted to exploit the things and the robustness of imagery that I had found in that glitch process. I wanted to see how far I could push it, what kinds of sounds, what kinds of things I could do with it. And so I took that interactive setup and started using it with more streamlined materials like Raspberry Pis and Arduinos. And I was able to create a show with 10 kiosks. And each kiosk has a Raspberry Pi. And for those who don't know, a Raspberry Pi is just a simple mini computer that you can do all kinds of tasks with depending on the version of it.
Yeah.
And so I was able to take 10 of those, install my own command line only. I think it was Ubuntu server. I think that's what I used for a while. And in doing so, you had the webcam, you had the Raspberry Pi, all pointed into a projector. So there's 3 items that the user has to navigate. And basically, my script is running nonstop. They come in, they see the materials, they're encouraged to touch the materials. It's very important to me. And they're able to take this webcam, import themselves. The sounds come in as well. They can do things from their phones that create different sounds and project it up onto the wall. But theoretically, what this kind of taps into is if you think about how society has become since the onset of Facebook, and you and I can remember both when Facebook came in and then MySpace, this set up a completely revolutionized, as we know, a different way of society to talk to each other. And so my ideas in the gallery were to have these items here, something that goes through my process. I'm part of it, but they largely are the ones to complete the piece in their decision making. And so what I noticed in the gallery, I started to observe my gallery exhibitions sociologically. And so the idea is that the viewer comes in, they have a decision to take the equipment for themselves, make their own imagery, and be happy with that, or they can combine projections with other groups. And then, of course, having to combine these projections and layer them, they're not exceptionally opaque. Because the projectors are at a certain level and quality, the throw distance makes them a little bit dim on the walls. So to get the full breadth and the full vivid image, they do have to combine with the other kiosks. And what's interesting about this is if you think about simple communication and transmission, they have to communicate together as humans. But also their imagery, they have to collaborate because one has one input coming in and the other has another input coming in. And these 2 inputs are going to cross at some point. So they need to calibrate that and they need to work together to get that kind of imagery. And what I noticed is that more often than not, people wanted to collaborate and get to know each other and say, hey, this is cool. That became really good for me. There's other aspects to the work. There's surveillance. That is the concern. We're dumping all this kind of information into the social media networks, so on and so forth. I wanted to touch on that. Purposefully, I made my script destroy itself as it created itself. So basically, this was more of a capacity issue on the Raspberry Pi because I couldn't because the things would crash. They would completely chunk out after a certain while. But yeah, I made that so that they could be a little bit more comfortable with what they're doing. So basically, the images are coming out. There was one point in time I was going to make it so there's pedals with them. They could push the pedal and the printer in the back would print whatever still was at that particular moment. But I never got to implement that fully as much as I want.
I was going to say, it's got that feel. It's got that, like, you have to live in the moment for this because it's going to go away.
And that's the essence of not only installation art, but performance art.
Yeah.
The crux of where my degree was and my MFA was intermedia, and that all occurred, a lot of it started in the 60s. There was a lot of change up in the art world where we were moving away from paintings and sculptures and clay, and we were moving into more theoretical sides, concept art, performance art, as I mentioned. They all have an essence of being temporary.
Yeah.
And in the 60s, it was, film moved in the art world now, not movies and film, but in the art world, film moved from being a documentation aspect more into an art form itself, a recognized art form. And that's why, you hear these like art club films and they usually are called classics and, no like sane person would want to watch them. But like, I draw from that. I draw from that era. Like I draw from taking the ideas of what viewers have as art, smashing it and giving them brand new things to look at.
I really like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big fan of, it sounds like it's got that procedurally generated feel to it. And that's what I'm drawn to with art, with games. So like I saw your stuff and I was like, I want to know more about that.
Yeah.
Like
it's like,
especially since it's got electronics, computer science. It's got like everything kind of combined and sociology, like you said. It's kind of a social experiment as well.
It is. And it becomes that for me. So I do time lapse my shows. The audience knows I'm time lapsing them, and this is more to get a craft and patterns. Now the work I'm doing now is incorporating AI and data and analytics to it. So basically, I can watch how people come in. This used to be just me observing them. Like I would watch the time lapse and see where everybody focused and where, another thing that comes up to me as the traditional artist, because a lot of my traditional work is drawing, every time the show ended, at the end of each night, I'd have the gallery techs come in and just take a photo of it. And sometimes I'd get them from when all the hustle and bustle is gone, I could get a picture of where the wires lay at the end of a show. I wouldn't change them from day to day, and I was strict with the gallery techs about that. And the idea is like I got a different contour, a different form from those experiences to kind of start drawings on.
Yeah.
And so it kind of all folds back into itself. But like I said, with the data analytics nowadays, obviously you incorporate Python and AI into anything, it's going to be more adaptive. I've also worked on several projects to remove my show from the grid. My recent research, I haven't formalized any work for the gallery. I haven't applied anywhere. I'm going to wait until the summer to do that. But the idea here is we're moving off grid. And so what I'm going to try to do and try to set up is I've been working primarily with AI. I've been working with local language models that require no internet. They you can set them up on a Linux distro. For me, it's Ubuntu server. And you can access them through OpenWebUI. And so if you're not familiar with OpenWebUI, or do you know? Okay, so OpenWebUI is basically a user interface you can install on a Linux system that runs all the inference locally. So of course, you're going to need gamer-style computers.
Yeah.
You're going to need the specs. You can't just go in there with CPU would give you results, yes, but it'd be more like 3 to 5 minutes time.
We use AI a lot in different aspects.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just neural networks that, sure, you can run it on that CPU if you want to get an answer in 3 days.
Well,
or you can run it on this machine that's got tons of GPUs in it.
Right.
And get an answer in a second.
So I had the interesting. I did a field test last summer. Basically, what I created was I took a simple deep cycle RV battery, an inverter, a couple 200 watts worth of solar panels, and I had that as my power source. And I got an old 2012 Mac Mini, and I put Linux on it, just like I had said, with OpenWebUI, and I could bring up a browser, and it ran all that fine. But like you had just mentioned, there were no GPUs on that thing,
Yeah.
and so the responses were 3 to 5 minutes. But it required no internet, and it ran completely on solar power. So the idea there is my work's taking into that. There's of course many different non-art applications to what that could provide. My son and I looked up things about the Adirondacks, the local flora and fauna, the survival tactics, making a fire. And so we were able, like I said, it took us 3 or 4 hours to get all the answers we wanted, but no. And so what I'm trying to I'm in the point now where I'm really trying to incorporate that into my art. How am I going to, because when you take my user interactivity into factor, that's definitely going to play a part.
Yeah.
And it's tricky because the AI is a touchy subject within the art community. And to clarify how I've been using the AI that I have been using is largely offline, and basically I look at it as no more than an interactive manual, which has been fantastic, as you might imagine, in coding, but also mostly for me is the Linux configuration stuff. I used to scour forums after forums. I had these thick Linux Bible books. I would look through those. Yeah. But the engines or the AI models I use locally, they're fantastic. I can say, I need to allocate I need to copy all these files to this drive, and I need it within the process. How I've gotten to be really good at Linux administration and moving files around. And that, of course, shot all my processing up it took all my resource management down, so I don't have to worry about it. It's more efficient.
So you're basically using it to help offload a lot of the non-art tasking, so you can get
and
more to the art.
I definitely use it at work. I use it to, and I'm 100% transparent with the students about it.
Yeah.
I have 15 years worth of course materials, and as you know, I'm sure you know very well that Unity, Unreal, Maya, all these programs update constantly, and I'll be in the middle of a tutorial. I'm like, wow, that's just not present anymore. What happened there? And then I task the students. It's basically this time of semester, it's around March, right? It's hard for me because I'm very step oriented. I'm very organized in the first half of the semester, but there's a point when I'm just got to be like, you should figure this out. I've given you all these materials, all these worksheets, all these steps and everything. So now the hard part that they always have to take, that hard leap, is I need to make my own stuff. And from the first day, I'm like, I don't care what you make. I don't care. I don't mean that wrongly. I just mean you can make whatever you want in this class.
Yeah.
But following my guidelines in the first half of the semester is crucial. And then now you just need to take what you've made and move forward. I do encourage the use of AI just as I have used it. I'm not asking them to write their responses with it. I'm not asking them to generate models because there's, of course, Meshi.ai. I mean, I mentioned that, and you can make models there. I do demonstrate that in class, and I show them, like, there's a lot of cleanup work here for you to do, and after a couple of worksheets, they understand that.
Yeah.
And then there's some that they would, die hard, I don't use AI ever. We get to rigging. And it's like I show them manually, joint for joint, how to get that rig installed, how to set up forward kinematics, how to do keyframing.
I've done a little bit of that.
And then we switch, we flip the board, we do inverse kinematics, and it throws them all crazy. And then, at the end of that module, this was last week, I asked, so would you use AI for rig? Like, before I finished the sentence, they said yes, because Maya has those tools inside it. They've existed for years. And then I would always follow that up with, do you feel more confident if you get something from the AI that you'd be able to correct it, or, get some ideas from the created rig and then make the rig again? They're absolutely yes. So there's ways of using it, and there's ways of using it I don't necessarily agree with. But that's one thing that we are really trying to establish at SUNY Poly. Is this ethical AI use, but also competence. Like, I'll give you an analogy. An analogy between this is I've been working closely with the College of Health Sciences at SUNY Poly, developing technology that will help in the education of their students, but students everywhere, med students, giving them that kind of virtual environment. But what also I've noticed is I saw a presentation the other day from one of their faculty about medical, there was a phrase they used, but medical illiteracy. So basically, the medical illiteracy in it is what kind of keeps people from A, going to the doctor, B, understanding what the doctor is saying to them, and C, being timid of the whole process. Okay. It's the same with AI. In my brain, it's the same, because I have a lot of faculty who see AI as a benefit in some ways, but they also see it as a drawback. They don't want it to be a crutch for the students. They don't want it to be something that completely eliminates critical thinking. And so in my courses, what I've tried to do, because they are art focused, is from the very first day, even the programmers, I'm like, everyone is going to draw something. If you can't draw, you can write a couple paragraphs. You're going to tell me about a character that you like to create. And it's amazing the turnout, because they've watched these characters for years. And they've watched all the things on YouTube and all the cartoons and all the anime, and they know what kind of character they want to make. So I give them 3 options. I say one of 3 options. They can draw it, and a lot of them can. They can write about it, or they can take their phone, get the voice recorder, and talk about it. And then I show them how to take that recording and just transcribe it, just listen to it. And then we get together and we have the artists work together. And the idea is they can see what other students are drawing. those people drawing, they can see what other people are writing, and it kind of comes together, and then that becomes the basis for the work for the entire semester. So this in turn gets them thinking creatively, but it also kind of curbs the generation process itself. Yeah. And so before they start getting crazy with using AI, have a basis, have a sense of your work before taking it.
That's really the key. I mean, I look at AI, all this new AI stuff, as like another tool in the toolbox.
Yeah,
you know,
that's it.
Like there are some uses for it that are really like they'll increase your performance pretty well. But you have to have some basis in reality and knowledge of what you're doing. Like I use it I can't really speak from a game development perspective per se, but it's kind of similar because I'm a programmer by trade.
Right.
So, game development, I'm mostly doing programming.
Right.
But like I can speak from an industry perspective and just software engineering in general. Mm-hmm. The big companies, they are advocating for using it as a tool to help you be productive, because if you don't use it, everyone else is going to use it.
That's the mentality.
They're going to pull ahead. Mm-hmm. So, but what I do see is that some people that's all they use.
Excuse me.
You know what I mean? There's the whole like, how do I do this? Like, write me some code for this. Copy, paste. Oh, it's not working. How do I do this? Now, you know what I mean? Without any of the knowledge,
right?
In their own head, basically. Mm-hmm. It's like, do you understand the code that it just gave you? Yeah. No, it just does it. I'm like, well.
And I brought this up live. I use Copilot because that's what's provided to us.
Yeah.
As SUNY Poly employees, I use that pretty regularly, and that's mostly because I take on a lot at work. I totally admit that. When I'm doing email correspondence, sometimes I'll send 1 or 2 words. That's all that's necessary. But I like to make sure that I always have a check, and I don't see this as any different than doing a spell check or a grammar check. Like I type out the entire email. And then I take that and I put it in here and I say, make this look more collegial, or like make sure that I'm taking into account. The great thing about Copilot mixed in with Outlook is it can read the entire chain.
Yeah.
And it can see if I'm missing any details. It'll tell me that, and then I'll place that into the email, and then I'll craft it myself with stuff that we have talked about in person.
It's funny because like I'll write an email and it's meant to be a professional email, stuff like that. And just before I send it, I'll go, hey, Claude, or hey, ChatGPT, like,
nope.
How does this look? You know what I mean? And it'll go, well, it's close, but to make it sound professional. And I'm like, all right, so it didn't sound professional beforehand. All right. So I if there's anything important that I'm corresponding, I'll just let it look at it and go, okay. Yeah, that's a good, that makes it sound a lot better.
And I've told them in class, like, there's one. These are the ways, I outlined this the first day. These are the ways I use AI. I've used them to revamp my course materials, to have them to Maya 2026, and that's helped out a lot. And then I've used them to develop responses when I'm grading them. I can look at their files. I can see what's wrong. The thing about AI that I really love, yes, it can take in an image, and these are the big ones. These are not local. But these are the big ones. You can take in an image, like a screenshot of your model, and it can tell you somewhat of what's going wrong. Mm-hmm. And we tried this in class. I always do this in class. Like, you take a screenshot of your model inside Maya, and you put it into Gemini, or you try it in Copilot, and ask it to tell you what's going on. A lot, and then the student can try that. And then they can know, and as they're trying it, they'll always look at me like, it's wrong. I'm like, it's not going to be right all the time. But this is crucial. This is the way I've always kind of worked with AI, because I use it in a very utilitarian manner. I use it like, so remind me, what's the command so I can automate this bash script and this bash script at certain times on login. And that's what it'll do. It'll write me that. And then I'll look at it and be like, okay, I can see now where I can put in my variables, like the file names and stuff. Yeah. And it's these are things that back in the day, like I said, to get those Raspberry Pis just right before AI, they had to boot up. They had to run my process. And then they had to react with power buttons. Because and this is absolute with 100 respect to the gallery techs, like they're not going to know how to run a sudo command, they're not going to. So I put that all on, jobs at the start, but then I also programmed that command line to, as soon as that power button is pushed, it just goes off. Yeah. And if it's a Raspberry Pi, you just flick the switch off, or you have it at a central power source. But yeah, no, I also use it to help me visualize things. Like when things are happening in programming, like I'll put in some script that I used, and I'll say, what does this do? I know what it does, but it's interesting to see how they're doing. And they're like, wow, it looks like you did this a little wrong or something, like things I never even thought of. Yep. But no, it's not all bad. I think it can be an extremely useful tool when it's not abused.
Yeah. Well, I grew up, I guess, what do they call it? Zennials?
Yeah.
Partway between Generation X and Millennials.
Yep.
Right?
That's about where I'm at.
Yeah. There's a certain amount of years where it's like, okay, you when you were a kid, there wasn't all this tech. There wasn't cell phones. There wasn't internet. There wasn't, So like you kind of had more of a grounding in in reality, basically.
Yeah.
Not that the internet and everything isn't reality, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it gradually came about, you know? I kind of feel bad for people that, like, from the minute they're born,
they don't know.
They basically have an iPhone in their hand or something. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if I feel it's strange to me. Yeah. Like I can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah. And there's sometimes when I know that it's a toss-up. It's something that's torn in my brain because I grew up with these things. I grew up with DOS games being a lot of my motivation, and I grew up having these things in my house. I was privileged. I had these, like, I asked my dad, I asked my dad for an NES, and he's like, no, I got you a CD-ROM and a Carta. I was like, what's the difference? Like, everybody else on my clock has a Nintendo, and I got Encarta so I can do a book report, So it's like, but in hindsight, having that CD-ROM, I had the CD-ROM, and I was able to, like, as well as I do, like, when we got the CD-ROM games, the quality jumped.
Yeah.
And they had, perfect audio, and it's just interesting. And one thing that I've come to the conclusion, I think I've heard a lot of my colleagues say this, it's better if you are the expert, or you're an expert. I won't say expert. It's a lot better if you're knowledgeable of a thing before you use AI. Yeah. Because then you're not going to know the difference. Now, as this whole, like, OpenAI and ChatGPT came out, and I was a late adapter. It was like 22, 23. Maybe I wasn't. Maybe I was just like, whatever, I'll install it and I'll try out. And what do I do? The first use cases that I had, that's what we call them now, and the first use cases that I had was understanding the absolute block I would get from my colleagues' work. Like, I would go in and watch their presentations, and we're talking about high math, business, engineering. I know about physics, and I know about these things, and I would take notes, like on a piece of paper. I'd write down just a bunch of terms. This is pretty much how I learned to read. You would write down words you don't understand, and then I would ask Chat about it later. And it would tell me, like, what's this? What are they talking about here? Well, this is how this formula works. And I'd read all that. And then later, anecdotally, I would say, is this true? And we would have one or two different conversations based on that question. It would be like, no, that's way off. Or I would hear their interpretation of it. Yeah. And ultimately what I found is this was connecting to colleagues I never thought I would talk to. Yeah. And what's interesting about that is I've always tried to have that kind of audit, that immediate audit to what I'm referencing. So with computers, it's real easy. It's like, well, it doesn't work. Like, it's very binary. Yeah. But with people, I think that's made me, it's exposed me, my program and everything to more people on campus. And it's allowed to open channels of understanding their work a lot better. And so, like I said, and we still have conversations about like, oh, what did chat say today? You know, like because it changes from day to day.
Yeah.
But no, and you know, over the years I've learned how to pair. A lot of the times, nowadays I'm getting smarter with it. Nowadays it's becoming more Python than the actual inference, and that has more to do with resource management. And so you have the CPU take care of the Python, and it's a balancing of how much percentage of the process is inference and how much is it processing. Just traditional programming is what they probably call it now, but that's where I like working on extremely modest systems as much as I can and getting the most from it, which is why I was drawn to obsolete technology in the first place.
So I wanted to talk more about the actual like workings of your art.
Sure.
Like you said it, you're basically filtering between audio and visual with feedback loops.
Yep.
So what's like the pipeline? So I'm from a computer science perspective. I'm interested in the pipeline of like inputs to outputs.
It's going to be crazy underwhelming.
If you can talk about that.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, with the art side, I'm public domain. Like okay. I don't sell it. I like doing it and I like experimenting. So when I actually get to talking about the programming, it's going to be very unsophisticated and it's going to be very underwhelming, like I said. So with the programming, I use primarily Bash script. And I would say now it's up to, I had going on 3 different Bash scripts. It's like one brought in the data. So I think it's a record. It's a command line program. Okay. It takes in a second. I think I got it trimmed down to like 0.2 of a second. It'll take in that little bit of sound. This is the process I'm speaking of now is where I take sound and make imagery. And so what I've tried to balance over the years is how much sound can create an image. And then it went from that to how much sound can create a high def image. And then how much sound, by how much I mean not only data size, but also duration.
Yeah.
And so basically you take in 1 second, you get a certain amount of data, and then I craft it with the imaging program into imagery. So basically it's been I'm telling you, it was a crapshoot for a long time. Like, do these dimensions work? Do these dimensions work? Do these dimensions work? And my computer science and mathematician family were like, Nick, just automate it. And so basically I was, I'm slow. I'm slow with so I could just write a Bash script that tests this dimension and this dimension. You just do a matrix. You do, all the heights on one side and all the lengths on the other side and see what spits out stuff. Yeah. And finally I was able to get a happy balance between the length of recording I wanted to work real time with incoming input. And so doing this all on a MacBook was fine. I mean, because they could handle it. Yeah. But when I started to trim that and go down to smaller and more modest computers, it really became an issue with lag. And so, and this is before I even incorporated Python. It was just Bash script. And so it really was just a couple of for-dos and then eventually a nested for-do loop that took in audio, processed that audio into imagery, and then backed out.
So can you talk about the actual processing? Like how do you go from audio to
Okay, so that's
video?
Good, yes.
Are you generating still frames from like
Yep.
the byte data in the audio?
And so basically with the audio program, A-Record, I take that audio and I convert that audio wave, I think wave is what I've used traditionally, convert that immediately into a raw audio. Okay. And then I take that raw audio and I open it up in ImageMagick. ImageMagick convert, ImageMagick is that they're both command lines, to be clearly honest. They're all command line programs. This is not GUI at all. So basically, you take those programs, A-Record brings in the audio, SOX, Sound Exchange, converts it to a raw audio clip. And then I take that raw audio clip and put it into a program called Convert, which is a sub-program of ImageMagick. And that converts that raw data sound into a raw image. And then I do image.
Is it literally like the bit pattern of the
It's randomized, and I haven't been able to map it out because I'm just not that savvy with where the data is being allocated. And so from there, Convert also converts that raw image into a JPEG. And so it's like I said, it's a nested for-do loop.
Yeah.
And at the end, of course, like at the end of it all, it deletes it. So basically, there's 4 processes for real. There's recording, converting to raw sound, converting raw sound into raw image, converting raw image into JPEG, and then then it takes that and puts it on a command line slideshow program that updates. It just turns on the program and then it updates every so often. So there's a lot of time signatures in each. Mm-hmm. And you get frame rates. It gets all kind of funny. You can do all kinds of things with it. And then at the end, it deletes the file. Okay. That goes back to my process there. That's where I'm at with that. That's where it's doing.
That's cool. So yeah, you mentioned recursive processes. Mm-hmm. Where does that come into? That
is not necessarily in this, other than basically I'm taking an image or I'm taking a sound and converting it into something else and then back into what it was. So it becomes more metaphysical. It becomes
back into sound?
Yeah, it goes, forgive me. The recursive process has more to do with the visual side of things. Okay. So now this is another promotion, so to speak. My work was going straight from sound to imagery. Now what I've done is I've taken in images from video, the webcam, goes through my process, converts it to a sound, and then back into imagery. Okay. And in doing this, it strips away a lot of the metadata. Obviously, if it's trying to interpret different headers, it's going to be it's going to be wrecked. But what I noticed from this is with certain encoding patterns, so you get into the sound encoding, and then you get into the raw image encoding. This set up to me a matrix. It set up a huge matrix where I had to really write down all the variables in this process. I had to write down encoding. I had to write down endedness, all these different sound qualities. Mm-hmm. And then I had to write down all the different image qualities. And by that, I mean color spaces. So on digital imagery, there's a couple. There's RGB. There's something called YUV. There's UYVY. And then there's YCBCR. So if you look at it, it's capital YCB, capital CR. They became prominent. I'm pretty sure they're probably around on professional equipment today. But if you think about it, these are how video was encoded to match a certain system. And it's a way of organizing the data, the actual on the data level, how the video is processed and sent. And so back in the day, it was encoding and it was making it smaller and all these things. Yeah. So like I said, you have all the visual qualities on one arm of that graph, on one arm of that matrix. And then you have all the sound qualities, the bit depth, the sampling rate, the channels play a part, how large is it? How it's the quality of the sound? Is it clipped? There's all kinds of different things that come into that. And basically, over the last few years, I've just been knocking them out. So basically, it started with SOX would encode it a certain way, and then that way was encoded RGB as an image, and that became a JPEG. And I could do it back through and do YUV, and then I could do all the different kinds of them. Each one had specific outputs. RGB and YCBCR, they're pretty friendly to being close to the likeness. So I could take a picture of myself and I could put it through RGB, and that would give me just a glitchified 80s pixelated version of myself. Yeah. Whereas YUV and UYVY, it completely reorganizes the data differently. And so if you think about it, I'm going to totally go off what I'm trying to say here. I'll probably get it wrong. But the idea is with RGB, it's pretty much first in, first out. I could be wrong. But if you think about it in terms of first in, first out, first in, last out, these kinds of arrangements with data, YUV and UYVY are completely different. So the poles are flipped. There's all kinds of different things going on. If you start to get into the audio qualities, that really ups the kinds of colors you can get from it. It separates channels. It's been a trip going into that. And reluctantly, I haven't incorporated Python or AI into it, but I have used AI to help me economize my scripts. So it's bash scripts. So, it's going to be like every command.
Yeah.
And then maybe, and just a for do loop. So it's like, I'm not getting any sophistication whatsoever. But, it happened on accident. And we talked earlier about Audacity, right? And Audacity is a program that has been great for me because I work in Ubuntu Studio, which is all open source software. And Audacity is on there. And what I was doing with Audacity, I would I'd find a picture online, whether it's a picture of me or a picture of my art or just a picture of a sky, and I would bring that into Audacity as raw data. And so I was finding that 99% of the time with that process, this is years ago, it was only giving me static for audio. I mean, it was, that's it, just white noise, sometimes pink or brown. But what I noticed
from converting from
raw data into audio, and it starting with an image file, through their algorithm. So basically, I would start tweaking with the raw data options it gave you. In that prompt, it was endedness, channels, sampling rate, what kind of encoding. And what I found is something called GSM, and I think it was 6.0. Don't ask me to know what GSM is, but what I have found is all these different kinds of encoding that Audacity and SOX offer you for sound encoding paralleled with the encoding I did in the Army and Telcom. So basically, these kinds of encoding, a lot of the encoders that I use are very, very low quality. They're mainly used for phone transmission. So
GSM is a modem.
Yep.
Modem format or something.
Yes, and it's low quality.
Digital speech coding.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, what happened though, when I brought an image in as raw data and I used GSM, it would spit out all kinds of tones like a synthesizer.
Oh, wow.
And so what I ended up doing is I would find those, I would develop them. I'd slow them down. I'd clean that, because a lot of times when you're encoding raw data from something that's not a sound, you're going to get crunch. Not to name drop, but a lot of sounds that Trent Reznor uses, he does, they're very similar to what I've discovered in taking images and turning them into into audio. And so normally what I would do is trim off the edginess and, scrape it down to just bass tones and the low frequencies. And then I would get a melody. I'd sit there and with Audacity, you can loop tune.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'd get a melody. I'd play it on my bass. I play a bunch of instruments too. So it's like I play it on my bass. I had the basic run of it. I'd play the guitar, put that to it. I'm not a piano player, but I can sit there and beep, 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 beep. Always wanted to learn to play piano. But Audacity was cool in that sense. I'd show my students, even in the art degree, what are you doing, Nick? What is this? And so I told them it was just
a song I wrote based on an image.
Right. And it's like every time I'd bring up a goofy photo of whatever was happening at the time, it was like whatever, the students went back in those days, it would come in there was the Rick Astley thing. There was Don't Touch Me, I'm Scared. There's all these kinds of things that the students would bring in. And ultimately, to me, that was like endless fodder. I could just take that and take an image of something and bring it in. Of course, after a while, I noticed that similarities between images. So then I went a step further. I looked at the contrast. I looked at the high, sharp darks and the high, sharp lights and how that affected the sound. Anyway,
well, it's very interesting because I did some work. I did some experimentation on trying to come up with a compression algorithm.
Yeah.
Like a new. I was like, I'm bored. I'm going to try to come up with a new compression algorithm.
long story short, I didn't do it.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's
Nothing,
like,
nothing
don't
I
go
did
there.
was better than any other thing. But I was like, this is fun anyway, right?
Right.
But a lot of it was basically opening up files as kind of a bitmap,
Yeah.
and then changing the like row length and stuff
Yep.
like that, so I could try to line things up in the bits, and come to learn like that's something that they do in like signal processing.
Yep.
Like RF signal processing and stuff, which is similar to audio signal processing.
Sure.
You know, it's all very similar, but they basically, demodulate like from a modem or from an RF or radio or something.
You gotta have
They
the other trick.
demodulate it to get the bits, and then you play with it in this visual tool, and you can line things up and try to find where the data is and everything. But in my experimentation with compression, I would open things up in this bit view basically.
Yeah.
And I was trying to run 1D cellular automata on it to try to transform those like chunks of data,
Yeah.
like the bits, and then trying to get a less random distribution of it, but use a reversible CA.
Yeah.
So I would like take a chunk of data. Sometimes it's just 8 bits, right? Run this thing on it until I got something that looked more compressible.
Right. Yeah.
And do that for all the chunks in the entire file, right? And then I'd look at the bit patterns and I'll go, well, that looks really cool. That looks like you'd be able to compress that easier, but it never really worked out.
None, dude.
But what was interesting was like kind of viewing all these different domains of data, whether it's audio, video, images, text, viewing them all in this like visual format, the bits, and going, you could do a lot with that. Like, and thinking about what you're saying about going from like audio to sound and back and forth. When you're looking at things in the bit view, it's kind of like Neo looking at the Matrix,
Yeah, no,
like,
right, yeah.
It's like I just view it in bits.
Yeah, just like that's all I see. Yeah.
But like playing with the alignment of things, you start to see patterns emerge.
Oh yeah.
And looking back on it, thinking about what you're saying, I'm like, yeah, if I converted that to sound, there would definitely be some tones in there because you can see patterns. It's not random, No,
I mean? It's not. And there was a program that was introduced to me in grad school called Metasynth. It's an Apple program. I didn't mean to cut you off, but Metasynth had a visual synthesizer, and so when my professor told me, he was like, you should try this out. If you're doing what you're doing with Audacity, you should try this out. And I found it was similar. Basically, Metasynth assigned adjustments a color. And so, sorry. And if anyone's used Metasynth, they know what I'm talking about. But like yellow would be pan. I'll get these all wrong. But yellow will be pan. You could paint that onto it, and it would change the pan. And basically, it was a remapping of what, basically, you could draw an image or you can import an image. That was really interesting. You could bring in an image and colors. It would interpret each of the colors on every pixel into something that changes the audio. That's what I remember about it. And while it's not directly related to what I'm doing, it probably is. It wasn't my aim. It wasn't my goal. My goal was to completely destroy that image and make something else, change it from one entity to another, and have it be robust, have it to be useful.
Not just static. Basically.
Right. And that's the thing, like there's artists that I've worked with that are like, why? Just the static is what it is. I'm like, like I said, in grad school, we were all together and we were all like really challenging our ideas, but I really wanted to have it something that was didn't have to be pleasurable to listen to, but it had to have some kind of body and form. So I studied a lot of music and sound form, and both like classical music, but also like John Cage, where it's more, like I said, it's more an ethereal thing where you have to interpret the sounds around you, and the sound, those sounds don't belong to you. You get into all that, but no, I really wanted to make something on the command line because I remember those long nights as a kid. Like, it's still not working. We got to allocate the RAM a certain way. We got to adjust the autoexec.bat so this game will work. And then I get a new game in, and it would be completely like you have to. I made a whole bunch of batch files, so this program would run correctly on the right amount of RAM, and I'd turn off certain things. So it was fun. It was fun back in those days.
Yeah.
But I wanted to have my art process mimic that in some ways.
That's cool. I really like the idea of the kind of what's the there's a condition that some people have where like they see sound or they hear
Synesthesia.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was prompted.
It kind of reminds me of that in a little bit. You know, it's like transition between domains, basically.
Now, my professors in grad school approached me about that, and like maybe you look into it. And the more I looked into it, the more I felt it didn't fit.
Yeah.
Because with music, I can play music. I played trombone as a child. I've picked up instruments informally over the years, and I'm not trained on them. I absolutely 100% cannot read music. I just can't. I know theory. I know this note goes for this long. I know that rest goes for this long, and I know what's bass clef and all these things. But there's something in my brain that just when I get in front of a piece of music, I can't do it.
I feel you on that because I did a lot of music in high school.
Yep,
and
I
I'm
cannot
still
do it.
bad at reading music.
Yeah, and I think as a bucket list, learn the piano. My kids are learning the piano now, and I think it's great, and I think I just need to do it. But I was able to learn how to play the drums. Took a couple lessons in the drums.
I'm learning that right now.
Yeah, and I've been able to kind of shackle together a bunch of weird jams. I play with people. I strive more in experimental and whatever is called now jazzy or improvisational. Yeah. I'm a lot better on the fly. If I show up to a group of people, I can find what key are in just by listening to it. I can tune my guitars or instruments to that, and then it sounds nice. As for actually playing the guitar, these instruments, as I play them, I see patterns in my brain. Think about it like this. When you think of an illustration of something, like a timeline, think about a timeline and how you have a solid line in the center, and then you have this item here, this item up here, this item up here. In my brain, I can visualize what I'm doing on the fretboard, and I know what patterns that I see equivocate to what sounds come out of it. So with the drumming, I've beatboxed my whole life, like since I was 2. And so my dad and I have always been very, very good at percussion. And like for me, for a while, it was in my brain.
Yeah.
And finally I said, I'm going to buy a drum set. And then that drum set came, and I was so afraid of it. I was just so afraid of it. And I said, okay, that's fine. I'll go get, he was 25 years old. Like I'll just go down and get some lessons. Got a few lessons, and it took off. Like I play it, and then I would get into I try out with bands, and they're like, all right, here's all the music, make sure you learn it in a week. I'm like, oh, I can't do that. I don't have that ability. But no, it was good. Like if they wanted me to come up for a night for a one-off, and then we just kind of record it, and maybe we practice it later. I have a lot of songs that I've practiced over the years. You're always going to be your worst critic. They always sound like a guitar tech. To me, like I record everything. I record the tuning all up to where I want, and I don't use a tuner. I've always been able to tune by ear, at least to make it sound nice. Yeah. And then I'll spend maybe 3 or 4 minutes tuning, and then I'll start the basis. It's a lot of the same songs that I play, but they're all mine. So
cool. I just recently started learning drums. Like I've been wanting to do it for a long time, and up until now, it's just been like me tapping on things while I'm listening to a song, and everyone else is listening to the guitar part, and I'm like, do you hear that beat? Like, do you hear I want to know how they're doing that. You know what I mean? So I started learning, and it's like already I'm like, okay, I know this is how you're supposed to this is the groove, right, for this song, but I want to do something different. You know what I mean? Like I hear something different in this song. It's like, but that's not what they're doing.
Yeah, no, then it sounds discordant.
I'm like, I don't know.
Oh, it's tricky. And one thing that I had to do in the Army, I was tasked more to do administrative things because I had a knack for it. I knew the computer is basically what that boils down to. But when I got to playing drums, the instructor that I had immediately said, okay, and we don't have an ability problem here. We have a coordination problem. So that instructor taught me to make a channel in my brain for each drum. Make a channel and to try to isolate those channels from each other. Mm-hmm. And that was the hardest thing I had to do. And it sucks for a long time. But once you get it, like, I'm just not very good at multitasking until that point. And then I was able to, like, make sure the bass drum's going, and then I got this beat here. Then I would have been able to, then I started to become able to kind of vocalize, so to speak, on the drums, my beatboxing. And then I realized I had all these beats in my head that I could just try to get out on the drums. And, every band that I played with improvisationally, they were like, this is great. You should, here's some music. I'm like, I gotta go. Like, yeah. But no, drums are great. I like playing instruments.
That's what, like I said, I've been doing like basically finger tapping and stuff to songs, right? And I get really complex sometimes, at least it sounds like it to me. And then I try to do it on the drums. I'm like, well, I was using these two fingers and this, but like trying to map that to the four limbs and like you said, have them separated, like
it's just difficult. It's
hard.
Like,
that's where I'm at right now is trying to bridge that because in my brain I know what I want to do, but then I'm like, but every time I try moving this arm, that leg wants to do that. You know what I mean? Like,
So, no, it's tricky. And then it was like. It was just getting to, I learned how to tune the drums really well, and I learned how to get materials that like took a lot of the ring out of the room, and then there's pictures of some of my work because I used very DIY methods, where my wife was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm hanging up these Afghans." She's like, "Why are you hanging up these Afghans?" Because this is the drum room. And this is like when we bought our first house very close to Fairmont State. And we didn't have any children at the time. So I was like, okay, well, this room, basically I have no idea how I managed this, but like I had XLR cables going into that room, into this room, and into this room. And then I would invite people over to my house. And I'm like, are we going to jam? Like, yeah, you're going to go in that room. And I had it all connected to a program called Ardar, which is an Ubuntu Studio. And I had this PreSonus 8-channel input that was Firewire. And you remember Firewire?
Yeah.
And so, and basically, they were all mono channels coming in from just that room. And I said, well, they'd be like, well, what can I do here? Set up your amp and set up all your pedals, and you just do whatever you want. And I got us all on a headphone amp. So basically, we could all tune in and hear it, and it was like the most awful acoustics. And then Jennifer came up, and she was just like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm hanging Afghan, so it takes the ring off the room. She's like, I have no idea what you're doing, but you better be able to fix it. I'm like, okay. But those were the days. I'd have all kinds of different bands, and I would say like, I'm not a producer. I'm not a master. I'm not like but I can try.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of good, really cool, dirty demos out of that. But it seems like I don't have the time now.
So where have you done shows with your stuff?
So like I said, it started at a bar in New York City. That was part of a larger group show. I wish I just knew the name of it. I don't know it. I'll get that to you. But and then it blossomed. I got into the job at SUNY Polytechnic. It was in my first year of tenure track, and I applied to a show in a gallery called Ground Level Platform in Chicago, Illinois. And it was a juried show. I got in for a solo exhibition. And the beautiful thing about Ground Level Platform was that they were viewer focused. So their shows were interactive. They would have a lot of food shows. They would have a lot of different artists that came in that demanded and depended upon viewer interaction.
Okay.
And so I showed right there in, forgive me, it's like the Chelsea area of Chicago. And I had a great turnout. So basically that was the first time I was able to show my work on a huge platform with hundreds of people coming through it. I was able to time lapse it and see all the interaction that came from it. That led into 2 other shows that I had gotten into. The downside of hitting 2020, as we all know, was COVID. Well, the difficult aspects that hit me were that the type of work that I was doing had to be in the gallery and it had to have other people.
Yeah.
So I was shut out of a lot. And so I looked at other options. There was a professor at the Fashion Institute of Technology that reached out to me. She was interested in the types of works I was doing, the sustainable things, sleep materials and all that kind of stuff. And she thought that we could come together and think about more renewable ways of making fashion and making clothes and so on and that forth. So COVID hit. We didn't get the grant we wanted, but she invited me for an online show. So in the November of 2020, I was able to show there. And again, as COVID progressed, I was able to get into several virtual conferences, one starting out in Galway, Ireland, where I was able to showcase the work that I had done so far. I was also able to get into the New York Electroacoustic Festival, New York City Electroacoustic Festival with my work. I was also able to get into a show at the Song Institute of Contemporary Art in Gimpo, South Korea, to where that kind of it boosted me on a global level. The conferences that I was attending went to different regions of the world, one being Perth, Australia, the other being South Korea and Seoul. And ultimately, the first one that I was able to attend past the COVID phase was actually in Seoul, South Korea in 24. Since then, I've shown at Indiana University. I've shown at Art Prize in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So it's been a wild ride in that sense.
Do you notice differences in how people react to your work in different parts of the world?
Absolutely.
Or even different parts of the country?
Yeah, even different parts of the country. I've noticed that in real urban areas, people are more receptive to it. Now, that's not to say that the urban areas have reluctant people who are very scared to touch an artist's work. That's been one of the big hurdles. But like in big urban centers like New York City and Chicago, people came in and did all kinds of crazy stuff with it. And one of the first questions people ask me, like, how can you do that? This is all like expensive materials. I'm like, well, I have a lot of redundancies. When I buy something, if I'm going to have 10 kiosks, then I'm going to have equipment for 20. Yeah. And so, I do tests, like I do these burn-in tests where back in the day, my kids were younger, I'd have them play with them for like an hour or 2 or 3 hours, whatever. And if they could survive that, then that's good. That's a good like rap sheet.
Ready, yeah.
to totally buy it. Let's just buy 10 of them. Let's just buy this. Let's buy that. And so, and they stood the test of time. Like I think Grand Level Platform was 3 weeks. Art Prize was just about the same. Overseas, and another thing that I learned very quickly was when you're going overseas and COVID's in place, I really was able to practice and perfect how to instruct the gallery techs and taking on kind of like a Frank Stella deal where you would send instructions for these to be a certain way at a specific time and do these. And I got very good at writing those. And so that a lot has to do with when COVID hit, I was confined to the house. I had a lot of time on my hands. I did so many different projects with solar and radio and all these things, but I was able to really learn how to teach online and think remotely. Mm-hmm. So with my students taking an art class online, it was easy in the sense that it's Maya or it's Blender or it's this. But really, those first couple of weeks that I rely on doing stuff by hand, with 3D modeling, sometimes I had them do clay. That really kind of chopped into students being able to conceptualize what they're doing. But I really took that opportunity. I'm not going to get physical shows and learned how to teach online.
Yeah, that's cool. So you got pretty far reach with your stuff. So
yeah. Yeah, and it's good. I tried to, the travel budget for a professor is a certain amount, right? And a lot of professors don't. They don't travel. And that's fine. Like any university is like that. And so a lot of times I rely on their unused funds.
Yeah.
But no, SUNY Poly has been wonderful. Every time I've asked them, I've asked my department and I've asked my college, hey, I got into this show, it's juried, and they want me to talk. And so that they're always good, but it's like, you can only do one a year, so I have to be selective on where I go. Of course, when the opportunities arose that I was going overseas, I did those. Now I'm more focused. I got tenure in late 2024, and I'm now more focused on connecting to other art galleries and professors at SUNY's with regards to the arts and also programming. So
That's cool. Well, I would love to see one of your shows.
yes,
So let me know when you have another one.
it's possible in the next year that I'll probably do one at SUNY Poly.
Nice. I would definitely try to get out to that. Yeah, I just like how much tech is involved in it. Like it's the intersection of tech and art and sociology, and like that's a really cool synthesis, I guess.
Yeah, and there's psychology of it too, and that's why this first year as coordinator, in the IMGD program, I've really reached out to all these, different fields to see how gaming and game design could mesh with theirs, and a lot of it boils down to gamification, and so learning how to take troubled spots in a class and make the students more engaged in them. I'm looking into how players play games now. And you and I both know how games are played now are not how they used to be played.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'll bring up the Internet Archive with my students, and I'll show, like, every day at the end of class when I'm done talking and everybody stops asking questions, I'll start playing an old DOS game. And they're like, this is The Sims. I'm like, no, this is SimCity 2000. There are not actual people there. But it's just interesting to watch them react. And then they try to play it and like, the controls are all janky. I'm like, of course they are.
I've got so many old games. One of the things I want to do for like my retro area is get I want to find an old Windows 98 or Windows XP or Windows 95
would be cool
machine, like with the CRT, the mouse with the ball in it, everything. Like I want the full experience, and I want to be able to play these games on that. Like but I had a funny experience so I was a big fan of the Tomb Raiders. I have like all the Tomb Raiders. They're like in a stack over there in the CDs, basically. But I found out that they had them on Steam, and I was like, well, I want to play them on an actual machine from the 90s, but this is good enough for right now. And so I got them all. They had like a package, right? And I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm going to play Tomb Raider. I haven't played it since 1990, whatever, And so I loaded up on Steam, and I'm like, how do you move with like...
It's like with Metal Gear. Metal Gear, the controls are all janky.
Like, the mouse isn't working. And I'm sitting there for a few minutes. I'm like, arrow keys? What?
Yeah, no, it's
how
like
did I play this
completely
game?
flopped.
How do you play Tomb Raider without a mouse?
And
I was like, I guess that's
right
how
into
it was, right? Mm-hmm. And then I'm looking at the graphics going, wow, I thought these graphics were like really, really good back in the day.
No, it's like I show every once in a while, I'll show students, because I used to, I mean, when I first got the job, I was talking about Alien Isolation all the time. But I do. I show it. Now, some of them know it and some of them don't. And I'm like, well, you got to look at it. You got to look at the better game, which is Alien versus Predator. And we bring it up and they're all square. It's like, oh my God, like what happened?
I mean, some of the first games I played were on an Atari 5200. I have one over there because I wanted to relive my childhood.
Yeah.
And there was a football game on there that was, the players were like maybe 4 or 5 pixels.
Yeah, I know.
Right? On a CRT. So it was just blurry enough to kind of make something, right?
Yeah.
But it was literally just these little pixel things going across the screen. And, I thought it was great,
Yeah.
Now it's like, people are playing games going, it's not totally realistic enough for me yet. I'm like, are you serious?
Yeah. And like a few years ago, I got Cyberpunk. Because I had known about the board game. I played the board game when I was a kid, the tabletop. Yeah. And just briefly, I didn't play it extensively. But and so like in 2018, when I got this job, I was like, oh, that looks fun. Let's get that. Let's pre-order that. And so I'm like, great. And I was excited. Like I was talking to the students, like it's going to be awesome. And, they were telling me, a lot of times, a lot of my passion from games has been very much restored by listening to my students and saying like this or that. And then of course it came out, COVID happened, and then it came out and it was like, what is this? And so, but at the same time, I'd go back in and students were like, well, it's like it's got some problems on PS4. And I looked at it and I was like, no, it doesn't have. And I was like, oh, yes, it does. But the realism in that game, it's a pretty game. I mean, it really is. And I haven't been able, there's so many different suggestions students have. And I look at the trailers now, I'm like, I think back to like old Sierra games. And it's like, the graphics got better and better, and the students are admiring the like 88 to 92 pixel art. And now they're like, did they map out every single one of those pixels? A lot of times they did.
Yeah.
They would have graphics programs, and then you had Amiga with Deluxe Paint, and you had these kinds of things. But a lot of times prior to like 88, they were coded. I mean, that's how you did it.
In like assembly, right?
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. If I was trying to make games back then,
I don't know.
I think I would give up.
Oh my
I'd be like,
gosh.
this isn't for me.
I know it was terrible. And then I got this cassette tape. I was on the Sierra fan club. I would get hint books and stuff. And if you remember, if you ever got the hint books for those old games, like Space Quest 4, Space Quest 3, back in the early ones, Space Quest 1 through 3, if you got hint books, they were like these white books that came.
I thought this was Sierra. It's not. Electronic Arts.
For Wilderness?
That's
I remember that game.
Apple II.
Yeah.
I had to get this too because
it's got like that special binding.
this actually might be. No, it's not. I lost the original,
Okay.
but I had to get it. Of any game, I had to get this one. I mean,
The Apple II.
It's got the floppies. And an entire manual on how to play it.
Yep.
But literally, it would like you see the graphics and you're like, oh, is that what it's going to
Oh
look
yeah,
like?
the boxes
It's
were
gonna look like
completely
this.
they were completely misleading.
It draws like you it's basically a text-based game.
Yeah.
Like you say, walk north.
It's like
Pick up
Zork.
this thing, oh, a bear just appeared in front of you, right?
There's a lot of imagination.
It would tell you like a bear appears, and you're like, I don't see it yet. Because it would literally have to draw. You'd see the thing going.
It's like a
Okay, once it shows the bear,
dot
then I can
matrix
do
printer.
something. Yeah.
I remember that.
But like I thought it was great. I still think it's great.
Yeah, and there was a game I remember when my brother, he worked at Egghead. He worked at Egghead Software downtown DC, and so every so often he'd bring home a game because it would make him a better. They had like store copies
Yeah.
that we could play, and so being the wonderful brother he is, he would give me a game, he'd be like, "This is how you load it." And in those days, it's like there's a comic book, there's a manual, there's like something to give you back and like basis to start.
Yeah.
Nick started the game having no idea what to do, and I just remember when on the Apple II, I think we had an Apple IIc. On that platform specifically, there was Conan that I played. There was Montezuma's Revenge. There was Wolfenstein. And it's like when I bring up Wolfenstein in my class, they're all like thinking of that Doom, the Doom era Wolfenstein. I'm like, oh no.
Wolfenstein 3D or whatever.
I'll bring it up in class, and it like I can see it in their eyes that they like, what is that? Because it's like the ASCII figures moving up, and the sound was awful. It was like that PC speaker. And so, I always told them, like, games from those eras might look like rough by today's standards, but you have to understand the reason why those games were successful, and CJ's told me this, like, is because they were made in the confines of the technology at the time.
Yeah.
And so you could put in, I was like, my dad finally brought home a hard drive. Finally, I didn't have to run DOS and A:, like very Amiga of that. But like when he showed me the hard drive, he's like, here's the cable, here's the old IDE cables, right? And I got it in there, and then I was able to put the games on the drive. I didn't have to change the discs all the time. That was just amazing to me. But
Yeah, I mean, just like today, when game developers try to push the bounds of the hardware, most people's machines, you can't run the games on full settings. You know what I mean? Unless you spend a lot of money. But like just the way they try to push like the limits of the GPU and the neural processors and all this stuff. That's what they did back then. They just had a lot less resources to work with. It's like the Game Boy. I read about the engineering behind that. There's a video, I think it's called like the insane engineering of the Game Boy, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, what? You know, like it seems like a simple little handheld console to me, right? And to cut costs, they severely limited the hardware in that thing. And the developers had to do some crazy things to be able to, like, I don't know, draw enough on the screen at one time. You know, they had to, like, I don't know. They did some crazy.
I don't know. I have no idea.
And that's what made it so successful, is that they were able to really cut the costs on it.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a favorite of mine.
Yeah.
I still have my original. You know, it looks like a Game Boy.
Yeah.
But it's got a Game Boy in it.
It's got the cable, like the cable so you can play with your friends.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know,
That's
my
amazing.
original system, basically.
Now I have student enthusiasts and alum, and my kid was playing. I don't know if it was the yellow or the red Pokemon. I think it was the red one. And there's a glitch in it. There's a real glitch in the game, and it's like it has to do with the save files.
Okay.
And I asked my students, what's happening? Is he doing something wrong? Like, no, he's not doing something wrong. That's a problem with that cartridge specifically. I'm like, oh. And so they told me how to subvert it, and but no, it's crazy where tech has come how far it's come. And it's like, I look at these phones, like the phone right here is like, and I don't know if this is correct, but like 30 of my computers from back in the day.
I know.
It's just like, how much stuff can you do with that?
Yeah.
But oh my gosh.
No, it's crazy. I do gravitate towards, I don't know, simpler time with games.
Sure.
Like I try to not overproduce. Like when I'm coming up with a game idea or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, the gameplay and the fun is more important to me than like, oh, I'm using the latest features of the GPU. It's like, is it fun? Does it have a good aesthetic? You know, I don't know. That's just.
And so is it coming from?
And I feel like that comes from, you know, my past experience with games.
What's interesting from my point of view now, I played games pretty well between, you know, from like 6 years old all the way up to like 2003. And there was Diablo in there. I was stationed in Korea during the time, and they were all about StarCraft, and so.
StarCraft was big.
All StarCraft was big, and then you know I got out and I went to college for art, and I think the last game I played was Metroid Prime, and it was like, and then I kind of put it off. You know, I did other things. I focused on my degrees, and then I come to this school, and it's like. Games have improved. so like I got somebody suggested Alien Isolation. I played that. I played No Man's Sky was another one that I played a lot. And then I played Cyberpunk, as I mentioned. But I have found that it's interesting now that I'm working with AI, because something that is used to make beautiful graphics on the screen is also used to run the inference.
Yeah.
And so it's been interesting. It's like, have you tried this game? Like, no, I'm using the GPU for this. Like, and so I get lost. And it's interesting over the last 5 years, like 6 years now with Cyberpunk, 5 years, that how things have changed. Every time I put it down for 3 months or 6 months and I go back to it, it's like the graphics look different. And it's because of the improvements. Yeah. But it's like sometimes like the HUD and everything is all different. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to replay this from the start. And it's just interesting to see how it's progressed. There's a lot of things they nerfed that I was like, why did you do that? But the things that made it enjoyable for me. So like you, I'm really about all about the gameplay, finding that loop and just grinding characters out.
Yeah.